Hey y'all, it's Amanda, and today we're heading on to video number 2 of my beginner gardener series, and it is all about how to read plant tags and how to stop killing plants. So this is probably the number one thing that I wish I had learned earlier on as a gardener. I wish someone had sat down with me and showed me how to read those little plant tags at all of the nurseries. So that little tag on your plant is the difference between success and complete frustration. Like I said, I really wish someone had taught me earlier on. So let's break it down into plain language so that your plant shopping experience is much easier in the future. All right, so I need everybody to envision a plant tag. I'll have some examples throughout the video. Most plant tags have the same things throughout. They have the same things on the plant tag. Typically, they're going to have the name of the plant. They're going to have a small description of the plant. They're going to have sun requirements, whether it's an annual or perennial, potentially height and spacing, potentially zones, water needs. We're going to break down each of those different areas so it's way easier for you to read a plant tag. So number one, let's talk about sun requirements on a plant tag. Sun labels aren't suggestions, they're survival needs. So literally, it's most likely going to have an icon. It's going to have a full sun, or it's going to have a sun cut in half, or it's going to have a sun with some clouds in front of it. All right, so basically it's telling you whether your plant needs full sun, part shade, or full shade. So let's break those down. Full sun is equal to 6+ hours of direct sun throughout the day. If a plant can handle full sun, it's probably good to go wherever you want to put it in your garden, as long as it's getting all the sun possible. Next is part sun. It is equal to 3 to 6 hours of direct sun with afternoon sun. Afternoon sun tends to be hotter sun than morning sun. All right. So part sun, 3 to 6 hours of direct sun, including afternoon sun, right, which is the hotter sun, all right, saying that that plant can handle some of the hotter sun. Next is part shade, which is also 3 to 6 hours of direct sun, but that sun comes before midday. So part shade plants cannot handle that afternoon sun that part sun can handle. So part shade, 3 to 6 hours of direct sun before noon, before midday. And then finally, full shade, which is less than 4 hours of direct sun before midday. So 4 different types of sun requirements, and you definitely want to look at that, and you definitely want to understand what that plant wants in regards to the sun. In hot climates like mine, Texas Zone 8, morning sun is better than afternoon sun. So morning sun is chiller, lighter, not as intense. Afternoon sun in my zone is an oven, is intense, and it's some crazy, crazy hot sun. So understanding the difference between morning sun and afternoon sun, and specifically a climate like mine, is very important. So for example, a full sun plant in Texas may still want shade after 3 p.m., which is crazy, because after 3 p.m., that west side sun coming through is crazy intense, and it will literally cook plants. I'm sure you've seen things where people cook eggs on their on something like their car in the afternoon sun, Texas hot sun. So remembering, just because it says full sun for a hot climate like mine, may also be that that sun needs to occur prior to 3 p.m. Okay, what else you might see on your plant tags? Number 2, annual versus perennial. This tells you if you're buying a one-season plant or a long-term plant. So let's talk about that. Annuals equal fast color and have to be replanted yearly. So things like, for me, zinnias, vincas, pansies, things along those lines. Those are beautiful, fast, gorgeous color in your garden, but they only last 1 year. And truthfully, a lot of them just last a short season, a spring or a summer, something like that. And then perennials equal slower, but they come back over the year. So perennials tend to be something that are going to get bigger and better over time. You might plant them as a small plant their first year, they get a little bit bigger their second year, and by their third year, they're larger into their full fruition of size and color. These perennials will also most likely die back to the ground during your winter and then come back the next spring. So basically their roots are living under the soil of a perennial, right? They'll live under the soil, they'll grow throughout the year, and then when winter comes, everything on top of the soil dies back, but the roots stay alive underneath and continue to grow underneath. And when it finally warms up a little bit, it cues those roots to start producing more leaves and your plant again. So annual, fast color, and you have to replant them yearly. Perennial, much slower growers, but they come back every year. So you're basically, when you're looking at annuals versus perennials, annuals are your quick impact, quick color, wow moments in the garden, versus perennials, which are your long-term structure. And having a mix of both is really what makes for an interesting garden. Okay, number 3 on the plant tag, height and spacing equals airflow. So crowding plants causes more problems and more pests than you could ever assume. So for me, I actually am a gardener who really, really likes a full crowded border. I don't even like to see the soil at all. That comes with a lot of issues, pests and disease along the way. So in the beginning, as a beginner gardener, following those space and height restrictions is super important. So height affects shadows, sunlight, getting to different plants within the garden. You don't want to plant really tall plants at the front of the garden with shorter ones behind it. Those tall plants are going to grow tall and they're going to shade out everything behind it, which is not going to work if those plants need sun. Spacing affects disease and root competition. So if you have a plant and it says it needs 24 inches spacing, it goes in the middle and you go 24 inches, give it all that space. It needs 24 inches to grow out to the side, so 12 on each side. And it's really, that might also be the size of the plant, but it's also referring to roots underneath. You don't want all the roots combining from multiple plants and kind of competing for resources. So making sure you're maintaining that width is very important. Having plants too close equals mildew, and it equals weaker plants. Yes and no. In the beginning, following the space and height is very important. Over time, you will learn which plants you can shove together. I will say perennials are something that you definitely need to follow more specifically in regards to height and spacing. For annuals, it's a different game in my opinion because they're only lasting a short amount of time. So for annuals, I pack them in. Okay, number 4 on your tag is zones, and zones are equal to winter survival. So zones don't tell you if a plant will grow. They tell you if it will live through your winter. So very important. So in the last video, we talked about learning your zone. I am zone 8. So when I'm looking at perennials, or any type of plant, and I'm looking for them that are hardy to zone 8. And if they're not hardy to zone 8, then I know that I'm treating them as an annual because they're not going to make it through my winter. So if your zone is within the range listed, let's say your plant text says that it's hardy to zone 5 through 8, and let's say your zone is in between that 5 and 8, that plant is hardy, meaning it will survive your winter and come back next spring. If you're outside that range, so let's say the plant tag says hardy zones 4 through 7 and I'm a zone 8. If it's outside that range, I treat it as an annual, not a perennial. Okay, number 5 that you might see on your plant tag is water needs. Typically it has like a little little droplets, and it maybe I'll have 4 and maybe 2 of them are filled in out of the 4. It's kind of like a gradient scale of how much water it needs, or it will say that it needs consistent moisture, or it will say things like drought tolerant once established. These are guidelines for water, not schedules. So that's super important. Every plant is going to react differently in different spaces. So whenever you plant a new plant, you're going to have to observe it in order to be able to figure out how much water it needs. So low, if it says it has low water needs, that means it's equal to drought tolerant once established. Once established is very important. You can't just put a plant in the ground and walk away and don't do anything for it, especially in the beginning. You need to water it consistently so that those roots can continue to expand and fill in the space. Once a plant is established, meaning it's put roots down into the native soil, it's pushed roots down far, that means it's figured out where its water source is. And so those that are low in water needs, once established, you don't really have to worry about watering all that much. High water needs means they need consistently moist soil. A lot of what I do in my shade garden needs consistently moist soil, so I keep an eye on that. We don't allow the soil to completely dry out. I have a drip system and a whole thing set up. I do think that plants that need consistently moist soil are more high maintenance for a beginner gardener. So I would suggest not getting tons of those. Just get a few to experiment with and start with, but really focus on the ones that have much lower water needs. A few key things about when watering plants that you're putting out your garden: always check soil before watering. Is it soggy? Is it dry? What do I need to do? And then that'll tell you your next direction for watering. And avoid soggy roots. There's very few plants that like to sit in wet, soggy soil. Very, very few. And so if your soil is already moist, maybe you've had multiple days of rain, you don't need to go pile on more water on top of that. Okay, number 6 on your plant tags. Ignore the marketing. This is so important. Those plant tags are designed to be absolutely beautiful. That photo that you see on the plant tag is the absolute best case scenario. It is not real life on day one. So very important to remember, you're going to look at this beautiful photo on the plant tag. You're going to think, wow. And then you're going to look over at this little dinky plant and think, these don't look real. Understand that that photo is the best case scenario. Now you have to take that plant, you have to put it in the ground, and you have to care for it in order to get it to that best case scenario. So instead of focusing just on that beautiful picture on the plant tag, let's focus on the actual plant itself. And here's a few things to look for. You want to look for healthy leaves. They're not ripped, bruised, browning, having issues. No spots on the leaves or on the stems. We want to make sure everything looks nice and disease free. And then also looking for insects or bug infestation underneath the leaves, all the way around, checking it all out to make sure that that plant is nice and healthy. We don't want to focus on the plant with the biggest blooms. A lot of times when you're looking at a plant and it's filled with all these gorgeous blooms and you want to take that home, those blooms probably only have a few days left, right? We really want to look at plants that have closed buds that have not bloomed out yet, because then you're going to be able to get to enjoy those blooms for longer. We're also not looking for perfect shape. And I kind of laugh, my friend Kristen, who I shop with, she is all about the perfect shape on things. I don't really stress about the perfect shape on plants, because once I get them in the ground, they're going to fill out the space that they're within. So perfect shape is not really a big focus for me. I am more focused on the health of the plant. Okay, so simple, easy steps to look through, focusing on your sun requirements. Is it an annual versus a perennial? Looking at the height and spacing requirements. What's the zone or the winter survival rate? What are its water needs? And ignore the marketing. So just 6 simple steps allowing you to better read these plant tags and make better decisions for what to purchase to go within your garden. Now, these steps also very easily translate to seed packets as well if you are going to begin experimenting with seeds. So once you can read plant tags, shopping becomes empowering instead of intimidating. And I think that that's really important. Don't be afraid to pull up that plant tag, look through it, Google it, do whatever you want. You do not have to decide on plants fast, right? Take your time, figure out what works best for you. Take a photograph of the plant tags, and if there's something you're interested in, go research it later that night and then come back later that week to see about picking up that plant. Take your time. Don't go all in unless you really understand what that plant needs within your garden. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed video number 2 of the Beginner Gardener series. Video number 3 is Budget Gardening 101, where to spend and where to save, and that will be coming out in a few days as well. If you're enjoying this series, I have linked the playlist at the end of this video if you want to check it out, and I've also linked it in the video description. And if you're like me and you are on a gardening journey and you would like to do that with gardening friends, be sure to check out my Patreon community. That link is in the video description as well. It's a small group of gardeners that we like to talk about gardening on a daily basis. If you're a beginner gardener, it's a great place to ask questions. If you become a patron within the community, you have access to lives, exclusive videos, as well as group chats and photo sharing. And it also includes direct messaging to me as well. All right, you all, as always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.